So today we will start with shell scripting. That's our topic today. So what is a shell? What is a shell in Linux? It's nothing but your command line. When you log into from your putty, when you try to log into the remote Linux machine, what you get is a black color window that is a shell. It is on that shell you are going to execute your command. Okay, the shell. That's what a shell is. And there are different types of shell in Linux. There can be assume shell is like a software. Just assume shell is nothing but a software running inside your Ubuntu server that gives you this black color window. Then you would be able to predict there are multiple software that can do the job. Right? You want to browse for some website, you can either go with Chrome or go with a Firefox. Similar way, if you want to get a command line, there are different shell that can provide you a command line. The command line interface that you see when you connect using putty, the black color window, either you are on one shell or you are on a different shell. It is possible that you can have multiple shell installed in your machine. That is the case with, by default, that is the case with most of the of Linux operating systems out there. In case of Ubuntu also, there would be multiple shell, or at any point of time you can switch yourself to a different shell. It's up to you what shell you want to use when you want to work on your Linux machine. The same thing happens when I connect from my Mac, right? What I do, I run the sh command to log into the remote Ubuntu machine. So I logged into the remote Ubuntu machine. What I get is a shell right now. What you see in my screen is a shell. So I told you there are different types of shell in Linux. You want to find out which shell you are using right now. There's a command echo $shell would actually show you which shell you are using. So whatever command that you are executing, ls command, cd command, touch command, whatever command that you execute, the commands are getting executed on this particular shell, the bash shell, which is actually bash. It is the most popular shell being used today. Most of the Linux distributions, Ubuntu, CentOS, Red Hat, most of the Linux distributions have bash as the default shell. But it's nothing, I mean, you don't really need to stick to bash. You can switch yourself to your favorite shell. But bash is the most popular and most friendly shell, which that's what we are going to focus on in our training. There are other shells like dash, bash, then csh, like that. There are different types of shells in Linux. At any point of time you want to change yourself to a different shell, say chsh, then you want to change your shell name chsh, then you can specify which shell you want to switch to. It will ask you, doesn't exist, maybe csh doesn't exist. Okay, sorry, the command is simply run the command chsh. It will ask you for your password. I don't know the password of Ubuntu. How you can reset the password of a user? What's the command to reset the password of a user? passwd. Run the command sudo passwd Ubuntu if you want to reset the password of Ubuntu. I reset the password of Ubuntu. Give me 1 second. Okay. Now let's say I logged in as user Ubuntu. I want to change my shell. I want to change my shell to something else. There's a command chsh which I can execute. Chsh space, uh, yeah, chsh space Ubuntu I can type. Or since I am already logged in as user Ubuntu, no need, I can simply type chsh. It will ask me the password of user Ubuntu. Then, yeah, let me run the command chsh change shell. It will ask the password of Ubuntu. Enter the password of the user Ubuntu. It will ask you which shell you want to use. I want to use bin dash. Run this command, then automatically you would be switched to a dash shell. So to see the new shell, you want to log out and then log in again. Then you can see you are on a new shell. But of course, the ls command, it will work. Cd command will work. Whatever command that you want to work out, they will. Most of the shells are similar actually. Even dash shell or bash shell, whatever shell you have in Linux, they are similar actually. Most of the command that you run on one shell will work on the other shell also. So I want to change back to bash shell. Basically, I am comfortable with bash. Eventually, you will make yourself comfortable with one of the shell, most probably bash itself. So I changed back to bash shell. Now I need to log out and log in again. Then only I can see the change that got taken effect. Okay, great. So this is how you change the shell of a user. It's recording them. So in our shell scripting, we are actually focusing on bash shell. That was the shell we have been working in so far, right? When we learned the Linux basics, all the command that we had executed, they were being executed on a bash shell. That was your default shell. So one question, have you ever thought how these ls commands are working? Let's say I am running the command touch test.txt. Right now I am user Ubuntu, I'm logged in as user Ubuntu. I run the command touch test.txt. It created a file. Type ls command, it is showing you the file. So whatever command that you are typing down, you are getting some output. I mean, the command is doing something for you and giving you the result. Mkdir is creating a folder for you. So the equation is simple. There is some execution taking place in the background. Whenever you execute a command, some execution takes place in the background. So what these commands are, what is this mkdir, ls, who am I, or touch? They are actually nothing. They are some executable files which has the instruction or which has the actual commands written in it. They are nothing but some executable files. Think about the exe file in your Windows. Similarly, they are some executable files. And these files are saved some places in your Ubuntu operating system. You want to find out where exactly this particular executable is located, you can run the command which is a command in Linux. If you want to know the location of any other commands in Linux, which mkdir would show you where exactly this mkdir is located, or which ls, or which touch. It doesn't mandatorily need to be the same folder. As you can see, mkdir and ls command, both of them are inside /bin folder. Touch command could be on a different folder, for example, user bin, or maybe user add command. It is inside user sbin. So different commands in Linux that you run are actually some executable files located at some place in your file system. It could be /bin, it could be /user/bin, it could be /user/sbin. It could be different folders where your actual executable file, the Linux commands, are distributed across. Okay, so when I run the command touch, how does my shell find out where exactly touch command is located? Of course, when I run the command touch test2.txt, then my Linux shell should know where exactly touch is located. Definitely, right? It should know where exactly touch is located. How does it find out where exactly touch is located? There is a variable called path in Linux. It's the path variable. It is called an environmental variable. Basically, it's a variable a wide variable that everyone can see. So first I will talk about what is a variable in Linux in shell. A is equal to 10, A is a variable. B is equal to 10.0, B is a variable. So basically a variable is nothing but a a variable that contains some value. That's what a variable is. It could be integer, it could be a floating point, it could be a string. Different types of variables are in bash that we will come into. And in bash, if you have a variable, you want to see the value of the variable, there's a command called echo. You cannot use echo a, you should use echo $a. $a indicate that you want to see the value of a. If you simply type echo a, it will print a. You want to see the value of a, you need to print $a, then it would print you the value. So basically echo is a command in Linux that would display whatever is given to it. Let's say you put echo hello world, it would print you hello world. Or you put echo a, it would print you a. If you put echo $a, then it would print you the value of the variable a. So if you want to refer to a value of a variable, you should put dollar in front of the variable. Okay, great. And there is a variable called path in Linux. This is not something you defined. There is a variable called path which would be initialized automatically. I want to see the value of this path. I told you path is the variable which your shell uses to find out where exactly your commands are located. So the path variable contains nothing but a list of folders. Home Ubuntu bin is one folder. /home /ubuntu dot local bin is another folder. User local sbin, user local bin, user sbin, user bin, /sbin, /bin, /user /game, so these are the list of folders where your Linux commands are located. And of course, the path variable is specific to individual user. The Ubuntu user will have a path variable, root user will have a different path variable, Ankit user will have a different path variable, right? Sunil or whatever user that you have, each user will have different path variables. So when I execute any command as user Ubuntu, right now I am Ubuntu, and this is the path variable for Ubuntu. I execute a command ls. What my shell does is, it will look for this ls file inside all these folders. Finally, it will locate the ls command in one of these folders. Then it will execute the ls command. That's how the execution happens in Linux. That is when you are getting the output. So you type some command which is not a valid command. You type enter, you are getting an error saying that command not found. What your shell actually does is, it is looking for this file in all these folders. In none of the folder it found the file. That is when you are getting the error command not found. It's clear, right? So what I am going to do now is, I'm going to write my first shell script, just a simple shell script using a VI editor. Right now, where I am in, right now, I am inside /home /ubuntu. I am inside /home /ubuntu. I'm going to create my first shell script, test.sh. The first line should be the name of the shell where you are executing your commands. It's the bash script. I want whatever command which I am going to write inside this file be executed on a bash shell. So in that case, you need to specify in which shell you are going to execute this script in the first line. This is the syntax for that. Actually, the actual location of bash is bin. Bash itself is a command. Bash itself is a software or binary in Linux. So basically, in this case, bash is nothing but a shell. So I am going to type some command here, ls fetch cd. So I would put, that's what my shell script is basically. You put together all your commands that you want to run in a single file. That's what your shell script is. So the first line should be in which shell these commands are going to get executed. So I mentioned the name of the shell. It is slash bin slash bash. So even if you want to find out where exactly bash is located, you can again use the command which bash would show you where exactly your bash shell is located. So that name you need to put as the first line in your script. In this syntax, put a hash, then exclamation, then slash bin slash bash. Okay, simply I want to run a single command, hello world, echo hello world. Give me 1 minute. Hey guys, give me 2 minutes more. Okay, yeah. So I'm writing my first shell script, test.sh. Let me, I got disconnected. Okay, so I am user Ubuntu. Who am I? You can see I am user Ubuntu. I'm going to write my first script, test.sh. First line should be the name of the shell where you are executing this script. I am putting only one command, echo hello world. So basically when I execute this shell script, whatever command that I write down in here will be executed on a bash shell. That's what this script indicates. I'm going to save this file. And one thing I may have told you, I may not have told you, I want to execute this script, then I need the executable permission on this script. So which user I am currently logged in as? I am logged in as user Ubuntu. And as you can see, the owner of this shell script is nobody but Ubuntu. So I want the owner, which is Ubuntu, to be able to execute this script. What is the permission I should give? Just ping me in the chat. The owner should be able to execute the script. Yeah, 7. Yeah, RWX you need for the owner you need the X permission. So it's going to be chmod 7. That means 7 means executable for the owner, or read, write, and execute for the owner. That's what 744. Actually, the first number is what that indicate the owner. So chmod 744 test.sh is the command that would give executable permission to Ubuntu user on this particular script. Okay, now the user Ubuntu want to execute this script. Can he run test.sh? Will it work? What happens if I run test.sh? Yeah, it would actually look for the path variable and search throughout this folder for test.sh, and it won't be found in none of this folder, of course. Then it would give you a command not found error. So basically, if you want to execute any program which is outside this path variable, you need to mention the exact path to test.sh. How you mention that? You can either mention like this, starting from the beginning slash home slash Ubuntu slash test.sh. This will give you the output. It would execute all the command that you had written inside that script, print you the result. Or you can simply type, you are already inside slash home slash Ubuntu, you can simply type dot slash, that means inside current folder test.sh. This is also will work. So this both way you can execute a shell script. So now let's say I want this script to be executed like test.sh. What I can do? I want to simply run test.sh. Then I need to get the script executed and it prints me hello world. Is there any way I can do it? There are two ways. One thing I can do is copy this script into one of this folder, of course. That will work. I can simply copy this script into one of this folder. Then when I execute test.sh, then my shell will search throughout this folder and finally locate test.sh, then execute it. That will work. Or what I can do is I can change the path variable itself. Change the path variable, include my current working folder where my script is located into the path variable. So right now path look like this. I am modifying my path variable to include slash home slash Ubuntu. That is my current working folder where I created this script. The command would be export path equal to the current path, that means $path, colon, then your new path, which is nothing but /home/ubuntu. So this is the command you can execute. To modify your path variable, you can see /home ubuntu also got added right now. Now you execute this command test.sh, it will work. So exactly, exactly. This export command which you run in a session is not a permanent command actually. It does not get applied permanently. Basically, it would apply only for your current session. You open your putty, then you run this command, then these settings would apply only to that putty session. What you need to do is just copy this command into a file called .bashrc. Under every user home folder, I told you the path environmental variable is specific to user, individual user. Every user will have their own path variable. So right now what I want is the Ubuntu user be able to execute the command test.sh. And I want, for the Ubuntu user, I want to add this folder into the path and I want to make it permanent. What I can do is just look for a file .bashrc inside the home folder of Ubuntu user. You can see a file called .bashrc there. Actually, you would find this .bashrc file inside every home folder of Linux usage. You will find one inside /home/ubuntu, another inside /home/ankit. Under every home folder of individual usage, there exists a file called .bashrc. It is nothing but a bash script that get executed each time the user login. Whenever the user login, whatever you write inside bashrc get executed. So this command, if you copy into your bashrc file, what it means is each time you log in to your EC2 machine as user Ubuntu, automatically this command get executed and path would get modified accordingly. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to open the file .bashrc, come to the end. At the end of the line, you will see already there are some other things. That's don't worry about it for now. Just copy this command, export into the end of your file. What it means is now each time I log into my EC2 machine as user Ubuntu, this bashrc file under /home/ubuntu get executed, which would also set my path variable. Basically, I made the change permanent. Now the path /home/ubuntu got added to the path permanently. So that's what it is. Bash profile, bash rc get executed each time a new terminal got opened. Let's say you switch yourself to a different user, it will do the same thing. Bash profile would get executed each time you log in, each time you provide your username, and that is for login. For each session, basically, let's say you want to execute a command as user Ubuntu. Maybe as a different user also you can execute a command as user Ubuntu. There is an option for that. At that time also, the settings in .bashrc will apply. Yeah, best practice is in export in bashrc only. That will make sure that it is a permanent change. Right. So that is what a path variable. So a path variable is nothing but a variable in Linux which tells you where exactly your binaries are located. Sometimes what you would do whenever you want to install some software, what you can rather do instead of using apt-get install, what you can actually do is you can simply download the compiled binaries from internet, save that in a folder, add that folder into your path. Most of the time you can simply do that. For example, this is applied when you want to install some Java. We are going to do this practice when we learn Java and some Tomcat. What we would do is we won't do the installation from scratch. We won't do apt-get update command or we won't do any kind of compilation. What we do is we download Java from internet. The compiled binaries we will download directly. Simply add those binary file into your path variable. That's enough for installing Java or many other software. Also we can do the same way. Typically it is frequently followed by installing any Java or Java frameworks. Okay, that we will see later when we learn Tomcat, those things we'll see. So that's pretty much about your bash script. That's exactly what you want to. That's what your shell is. Right? So now I will write a sample script. Let's say my intention is first I will switch myself to the root user. I want to work as the user root better so that I will have permission to run any command. So I'm going to execute some, basically I'm going to create a script called test.sh. You can see I switched to root. I am inside /root. If you type ls-a, you can see there is a bash rc folder inside root also. So under every home folder, you would find a .bash rc file. Each time you run this command su to become the root, at that time bash rc get executed. So let me create my first script. Bin bash. Maybe what I want to do is I want to do a series of action. Let's say I want to add a user add Ankit. Then I want a group to be created. Group add developers. Then I want this user to be added to the group. Or maybe I also want the user to be the home folder to have change permission. By default, the home folder of Ankit is going to be /home/Ankit, right? And the permission should be the group will be Ankit, the user also will be Ankit. I want to change it. Let's say I'm going to run the grp command. I want a different group to be owned by Ankit, maybe developers itself. I already created a group called developers. I want developers to be the group of /home/Ankit. Change the default settings. Change the group from Ankit to developers. Let's say, I mean, basically, I want to do a series of action, whatever it is, right? And then I want to set permission that 750. I want other people not to be able to do anything on this folder. The Ankit user will be the owner of this folder. He will be able to do full permission. Whoever part of developers group would be able to read and execute this folder. Other people, I don't want them to have any permission. So I set a, so based on what I want to do, I just run a series of commands. Then I can simply execute this as a script. First, I should give permission, right? 744 test.sh. Execute this. All things will happen. First, the user will get added. Then the group would be created. User get added to the group. Whatever commands output, you can see in the output of the script also. If you do not want to see it, you have the option to send the output to a null device, which I will show you how to do that. Otherwise, whatever commands that are being executed inside the script, the output would be printed onto your shell. So if you don't want that, there's an option like add user has some output, but I don't want to see that. You can send such output to a null device. Basically, dev null is nothing but a device in your Linux machine that whatever you send it to it, it's gone. It's something like a black hole, right? So just assume it's so you do not want the output of this command to be printed into your terminal. You can send that to a null device called dev null. So other commands does not have any output, so I'm not putting. Right? So now I execute the test.sh script. I won't see any output. It would just execute. So that's what a shell script is. Basically, whatever that you would do on a shell, you put together inside a script is what basically a shell script is. So now we will take a look on what all things that you can do on shell script. Maybe sometimes you would want to do this. Maybe this script you want to execute on some 100 machines. On some 100 machine you want to execute this script. Basically you want the user to be created, group to be created, user to be added to the respective groups, a set of action that you want to do on a 100 machine. What you can do, you can simply copy this script on all 100 machines and execute it. So when we learn advanced topics, we will see how you can even automate running the script on multiple machines. That we will learn when we start with DevOps. But yeah, and now maybe I want to make this script a little more advanced. It's not Ankit user I want to create. I want to make this script more generic. What I can actually do is I can pass the username, the group name as an argument to the script. That's also some option. Let's say username equal to $1. I will tell you what is $1 and $2, etc. Group name is equal to $2. So what my intention right now is, inside the script, I don't want to specify which user I want to add. Instead, I want to use some variable. The variable name is username. Instead of developers, I put group name. Add user command also. Instead of Ankit, I would put $username. Instead of developers, I want to put $group name. Over here, /home/$username is the actual folder name. So now my script became more generic. Basically, I want to add a user Ankit and a group admin, or I want to add a user called Venkat and a group called DevOps. I can just pass whatever I want to do through the script itself, and by default, Bash would, it's called positional parameters. When you execute a script, you can actually pass positional parameters to it. I will show you how to do that. And inside the script, they are referred as $1, $2, etc. Let me save the script. Okay, yeah, correct. Developers also, I am going to modify $group name. So now I am going to run this script. I want the user to be Venkat, the group to be DevOps. So when I execute this command, what actually happens is I am passing two arguments to the script. They are called positional parameters of the script. Venkat would be referred inside the script as $1. DevOps would be referred as $2. So whatever arguments that you are passing one by one, they would be $1, $2, $3, etc. So what would happen inside the script if I execute this command? I'm not executing it right now. I'm just opening the file again. $1 is Venkat, $2 is DevOps. So $1 you are assigning to a variable called username. $1 is nothing but your first argument, whatever you received as the first argument, you are assigning to username variable. $2 you are assigning to the group name variable. And then you are using the variable instead of actual value. So let's say now my script became more generic. Now I want to execute it like this. Test sh Venkat DevOps would create a user called Venkat, a group called DevOps, add Venkat user to the DevOps group, then also set the permission, make DevOps as the group of home folder, then change the permission to 750. So all these things would happen. So if I want to create another user and another group, Venkat 123 and maybe developers or maybe ops. So I can just execute this command, and further what I can do, let's say I want this command to be executed by people who maybe the root user, many people are going to root user and they are going to execute this command. I could rather add this file into path, right? If I add this file into path, they can even execute it like this, test sh space venkat space ops. So just wanted to show you some example what all things you can do using a shell script. So now we will begin with our topics. So any question, maybe we will take a short break. Any questions? So just hope you got what is shell, what is path variable, right? That is most important. We are going to use these things later on when we learn right more tools and technologies. We are going to refer to this path a lot. So, yeah, go ahead.
Dot dot slash dot sh venkat 123 ops. Okay, if you run this command,
Mm-hmm.
that whatever you inside the script, it will be run.
Correct. Whatever the script that you had wrote down inside the script will get executed.
Okay.
The user add
Okay. For
command.
example, okay. So if you update user also same. This is a unique thing. $1, $2.
Yeah, it is. It's a unique. I mean, it's for generally that is the variable. These are called positional parameters of shell script that we are going to talk about
Okay.
in detail later. All right. Basically,
Okay.
any parameter the script is going to receive are referred as $1, $2, $3, etc. depending on their position. The first argument is $1, second argument is $2, like that. You can use these
Okay.
variables inside your script to refer to those arguments. That's what, that is the reason they are called positional parameters.
And before using export, directly you can call dot slash test dot sh also. It will directly create that home directory, that path.
Yes, that's what we did. We ran the command dot slash test.sh, then
Okay.
passed the username.
If we don't use dot slash test, we can before we need to use the export, correct?
Yeah, if you want to run the same command, let's say now you executed using dot slash, or otherwise you
Okay.
have to specify the complete path. This is the only way you can execute the script. If you don't
Okay.
want to put like this, you can simply run the command test.sh, just like you would run a Linux command. You want to execute test.sh script, then uh, the folder where test.sh is in this case slash root, test.sh is inside slash root. This should be added to your path environmental variable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Take a short break of 5 minutes. We will continue in 5 minutes. Function. So a function is something like you are writing down a set of program, a set of operation, and whenever you want to do that set of operation, you call this function. Basically, it is something like a place where you write down whatever you want to do. Then you might want to repeat the things each time you want to do those operations. Call that function. For I will give you an example. Fun.sh. I'm going to create a file called fun.sh. Yes, the first line should be which shell your commands are going to be executed. So bin bash. So I am defining a function called, let's say, addition. I am creating a function called addition. It start with a bracket, end with a bracket, and inside that you write down whatever operation this addition function would perform. Let's say what it does is expr is a command in bash. Sum is equal to expr $1 plus $2. So what is arguments? So assume this is a function where what this function does is I am writing some commands here. I want to calculate the interest of a bank application, right? You have some people have a fixed deposit, some people have some other things, maybe a savings account, some people would have a loan account. So for all these accounts, or and also the interest rate can vary. For FD it's different interest rate, and it depends on capital income. So there are different things which this interest depends on. It depends on whether what type of account it is, on which day you deposited it, what is the interest percent. There are many things which matters. So whenever you want to make an interest calculation, what you would do is you will call this function which has these calculations in place. And when you call the function, you are passing these arguments. Basically, it is a fixed deposit account. This is the capital amount. This is the interest rate. All these things you would pass into the function. The function will receive those arguments as $1, $2, $3, etc. Just like the way you have seen positional parameters. And on these arguments, the function would execute, and finally it will return the result to the calling function, calling program. Basically, it is nothing but the calculated interest. So this calculation will take place always inside the function, and function receive arguments and return a value. That's what a function would do. So in my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write an addition function. Whenever I want to do an additional operation, what I do is I will call this function and I will pass whichever values that I want to add. Let's say A and B, the two numbers I will pass to the function. Function will receive these two numbers, perform the addition, then it will return the sum value back to the calling program. So again, it is $1, $2, etc. The argument which is passed to a function as referred as $1, $2, etc. The first value I am assigning to a variable called A. This is actually optional. B is equal to $2. First argument the function received is assigned to a variable called A. The second argument is assigned to a variable called B. Then you are calculating the sum. Sum is equal to $A plus $B. Then finally you are printing sum. Echo $sum. Okay, so my function is defined. Now from my program, I want to make a call to this function. What I can do is addition space the number which I want to sum. I can make any number of calls. Each time what happens is these numbers are being passed into the function. The function will calculate this operation. It will add the sum, assign the value to the variable sum. It would print the sum. So for each time function get called, I will get a value printed. First set the permission 744, execute the command fun.sh. You can see there should not be any space here. Yeah, you can see each time the function got called, it executed whatever action that you wrote inside that. So later in our course, we are not ready. We will see if you have a service, Apache, assume you have Apache, how you can write a script that can stop Apache, start Apache, restart Apache, do many operations on Apache, but all operation would be executed by a single script. So that we will see later after we covered few more things. So variables I already discussed, right? You can have different types of variable. Integers, a is equal to 10, a is an integer. Automatically, as you assign the value to the variable, automatically the variable would be defined. You don't need to specify explicitly that a is an integer, not required. You just assign the value to the variable, automatically the variable would be defined as, so you put 10.0, then b is a floating point. You put c is equal to Basil, then c is a string. So depending on whatever value that you are assigning, automatically the variable would be defined by bash. No need to explicitly mention that. And you want to see the value of a variable, what command you can use? Echo space $C is the command. You put dollar in the front if you want to see the value of the variable in bash. Dollar indicate you want the value of the variable to be printed. If you simply type C, it would print you C. If you type $C, it would print you Basil. So conditional operation. Okay. Or if condition. Basically, sometimes you would come across some situation like, first you want to check if the user already exists. If the user does not exist, you want to create the user. Or that is one situation. Or sometime you want to check if a particular process is running inside your Linux machine. If it is not running, you want to start it. So there can be some situation you would come across. You want to look for a condition, and based on the condition, you want to decide what you want to do. So that is what a conditional statement, or in bash it is if. In most of the programming language it is if only. So you check if this condition is true, if this file exists. If it exists, then delete the file. If it does not exist, maybe you put something inside the else block saying that uh, don't do anything, or maybe simply print a message saying that the file is already deleted, there is no such file. Or you want to put an if condition to check if a process is running or not. If the process is running, you don't want to do anything. Otherwise, else you want to maybe start the process. So there can be a situation where you have to look for a condition, then you need to decide what you want to do, whether you want to execute this particular block or this particular block, depending on a condition. So that's what if is. So I'm going to create a new script, if.sh. Let's say a is equal to 10, b is equal to 20, two values. I'm putting an if condition to check if a is greater than b. If a is greater than b, then I want to print a message saying that a is the biggest. Otherwise, I want to print b is the biggest. $a, LT means less than, GT means greater than. So I want to check a is greater than 20. Actually, it is false. A is not greater than 20. So I'm still running my program like this. If $a greater than b, then what I want to do? If a is greater than b, what I want to do? Maybe I want to run two echo commands. We got the result. First you print something like this, then you print. If a is greater than b, what you want to print? A is the biggest. Else, what it means is, if this condition is not true, then this is the block that you want to execute. So if this condition is true, this block you want to execute. If it is not true, this is what you want to do. What you want to do? Again, we got the result. B is the biggest. Then if condition close with an fi, start with if, end with fi in bash. So let's execute this. give it 744 permission for if.sh, execute if.sh, it would print you. We got the result. B is the biggest, of course. In our case, we set A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20, then this condition has failed, which means this particular set of the code would be executed. So basically, you would decide what part of the code you want to execute depending on a condition. That's what if is. So maybe I will show you one better example. Maybe Apache. There is some service running called Apache. I don't have Apache. Maybe I will take some other service. rsyslogd. Take the example of rsyslogd. There's a process called rsyslogd running inside my Linux machine. So what I want, this is a critical process. I want to make sure that this process is always running. I do not want this process going down at any point of time. So what I want to do is I'm going to write a script. The script will check if this process is running. If the process is not running, I want to start it. Just as simple as that. So either we can run the ps-ef command to find out whether the script is running. If you find a process in the list, what it means is the process is running. rsyslogd is running. If you don't see in the ps-ef output, it means rsyslogd is not running. Maybe rather than ps-ef, better command would be pgrep. There is a command called pgrep that you can use to check whether a given process is running or not. So I want to check this process is running or not. Running the command pgrep. What pgrep does is, if a given process is running, it would print you the process ID. Process ID of the running process would be printed as an output to your pgrep command. What it means is, if you are getting some output, the process is running. That's as simple as that. If there is an output, the process is running. Let's say I'm going to kill this process. I'm going to stop this process. The command is service rsyslogd stop. If I run this command, then automatically this process will get terminated in my Linux system. So I'm not going into depth what is this process and everything. Just assume I have a process running in my Linux system. The process name is rsyslogd. Now I am stopping this process by running this command. Now you run the command ps-ef, you will not see rsyslogd anymore. It is stopped. It's not running right now. It's gone. Or if you run the command pgrep rsyslogd, you won't see any output. So this way you can identify if a given process is running or not. If you don't see any output, what it means is this process is currently not running. So I want to write an if condition in my bash script to check if this particular process is running or not. If it is running, I don't want to do anything because it's all looking good. If it is not running, I want to start it because otherwise it is going to be a problem. I want this critical process to be running in my Linux system all the time. So how you would write your if condition? Actually, there is a variable in Linux. It is called echo. It is called $? There's a variable in Linux called $? What this variable contains is a number, and the value this variable contains depends on the previous command which you had executed. Now you look at the value of $? Right now, it is 1. The reason it is 1 is the command has failed. Any command you execute on, you type ls command, you executed some command and ls successfully got executed. If you look at the $? Value, it's going to be 0. So any command in bash, when they get executed successfully, a variable got initialized with a value of 0 $? If the command had failed, it would be a non-zero value. This variable would be initialized with. So basically, in your if condition, first you can execute this script, execute this command, then look at the value $? If it is equal to 0, what it means is you are getting some output from this command. rsyslogd is running. That's what it means. So Let's write my script if dot sh, maybe a different script. Check rcs logd. I'm going to create a script called check rcs logd, and this is what I am going to do. First thing, I will simply execute this command pgrep rcs logd. Of course, you don't want to see the output of the script printed onto your terminal. I am sending that to a null device. So this command will execute now. Then $? Value will be set. If this command had succeeded or it printed the value of PID of rcs logd, then it would be set to 0. Or if the command had failed, it would be non-zero. I mean, it may not be 1, it can be non-zero. Either 0 or non-zero, that is the actual indication. So I am going to write my if condition $? Equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, well and good. Basically, this command had succeeded. That's what it means. What I want to do, I would not do anything. I would simply print a message saying that everything is looking good. Yeah, service is running. Everything is looking good. Else, there is something wrong. That means $? is not equal to 0 means this process is not running. This command had failed. If the command had failed, what it means is the process is not running. That's what this command is. Then you will saying that attention, rcs logd is not running. I will also say I am going to start it, right? Print some message. Then there's a command in Linux you need to run. The command is service rcs logd start. This is the command you need to run in Linux to start rcs logd service. Fi is where you close this. So now I'm going to save this, and right now I believe we already stopped rcs logd. Yeah, right now rcs logd is not running. Now I am going to execute my script. First I need to give the permission 744 check rcs logd.sh, and now I am going to execute the command check rcs logd. But right now rcs logd process is stopped in my Linux machine, so you know what this script is going to do. Quite not what you expected, right? Actually, this command will fail, which means $? Would become non-zero. Then the else block should get executed, but there is something wrong. Yeah, that's also one option. No, actually, it's not. It's not running. Maybe what we need to put is no. If condition is correct only, bash check rcs logd. He can execute like this also. Okay, it's working when I run like this. Hmm? Yeah, this one, right? Actually, I know that error. It's, service name is RSS log. Basically, when I execute the command like this, it's working, right? But when I execute with dot slash, it doesn't look to be working. I don't know why it is. So forget it. I will check and tell you tomorrow, maybe. So I'm going to execute this script. This time I'm going to execute it script like this: bash space script name. This is also you can a valid syntax if you want to execute a bash script. You can run the command bash space check rcslogd.sh, which would basically execute this script in a bash shell. But it's the same thing. You put bash in the first line, it does the same thing, but I don't know, something looks to be wrong. So as you can see, I executed this. It says attention, R6 load is not running. I'm going to start it. Basically, it's the else block that got executed. In fact, it started the R6 log service also. Now you run the ps-ef command, you will see R6 log is running now. Now I am going to execute my script once again. Check rcslogd.sh. This time it would say everything is looking good. Service is running. Basically, RSS log is running. It detected, the script detected that. Then it would execute the if block, not the else block. So this is very useful actually. Many times whenever you want to, there can be some critical process running in your Linux system, and you want a script. And sometimes what we can actually also do is schedule this script to run maybe every minute. Yeah, like a cron tab in Linux. You can run it every minute. Then ever it goes down, it would get started within 1 minute. So that is also people does. Or maybe I don't want this script to be only checking RSS log. I want this to be a more generic script. What I can do? Maybe first I will rename the script to check RSS log to check service. Basically, any process I want to check. Not only RSS log, I want to check any process. What I can do? Basically you can pass the service name as an argument. Not only the process name, rsyslogd is the process name and rsyslog is the service name. So basically both the process name and service name you can pass as an argument to your script. Process name equal to $1. The first argument you will pass the process name. Second argument you will pass the service name. Right? You can do this, right? Instead of rsyslogd you put process name. Here you can put process name is running. Here you will put process name not running. Here you put service name start. Sometimes, I mean, most of the cases, you would find that the process name as well as the service name would be same, but it's not mandatory. Depending on, for RSys log it is different, for Apache it is same. So depends on what service it is. Sometimes it can be different. So that is why I am passing both process name and service name separately. Now let's say I want to check a service called SSHD or rsyslogd itself. What I can do? Run this script, check process.sh. This is not working, right? Bash space check process.sh. Then you pass the arguments. First the process name, then the service name. Or you want to check SSH. In case of SSH, process name is SSHD, service name is SSH. So like this script can now be used for checking any services in my Linux system. Only dot ss, what is it? If I execute that, it would throw you an error. Basically, you can still execute it. You can try to execute check process. So this will get a null value if you don't pass any argument. Null means nothing. Basically, this command will fail. This command itself will fail, saying that you did not pass any argument. If I execute this command without any argument, right, the first pgrep command itself will fail, saying that no matching criteria specified. So it will continue, right? So if you do not want it to continue, then that also something you need to take care. What you can actually do is basically it will throw error. Yeah, you can see the error. This is the error. You can see pgrep command got error.
Basil, one question.
Yeah.
If you directly kill the process, then after that I will start the script. What will happen?
I kill the process and start the script. Yeah, then
Yes.
it will start. Then basically, which block would execute? In that case, the else block will get executed because dollar question mark would be non-zero in that case. It would start
Okay.
the service.
And one more thing, and you log in as a root user. So why again we need to give the permission? Because the root user having the all all commands acceptable, correct? Why again chmod 744?
Not the executable permission. Even the root user will not get the executable permission by default. You have to manually give it. Let's say I'm going to create a new file. Touch test.txt. You run the command ls-l. The root user will not have executable permission on the file. Only read and write. By default, there won't be execute permission. You need to give it.
Okay.
So should we consider it as if you are installing any application, then root will not have execution permission for that one, right? But it can modify the data inside of the application. Should we consider it like that?
Yes, correct. That's right. I got some questions here. Can we set parameter to ask for entry inside shell script? Yeah, we can do that. Actually, that we will see tomorrow. I will show you. Basically, let's say you are executing this dot check process.sh, but you forgot to provide the arguments. So what you would want to do inside the script, you want to first check if the argument is 0. If the argument is 0, then you want to stop it. Maybe you will even ask the user, you did not provide the process name and service name. What is the process name? Then you enter the process name using your keyboard. It can read that value. So that we will see tomorrow. It can read that value. There is a command called read. If you want to check a given process is null, there is something called -z. You can put another if condition. So first you will check if this process name and service name are null or not. You can use a if condition using. This is how you do it. -z. This is the command which will check the given variable is null or not. If it is null, what do you want to do? You want to stop the script. Maybe you would print a message saying that please provide a valid process name. -z will check if it is null, 0. -z is a option in if condition which will check a given process is null or not. So it would be true if it is null. That's what -z means. So if it is null, what you want to do, you would print a message saying that please provide a valid process name. Then maybe at the same time you want to exit the script also. Or what you can do is you can read from the keyboard. Read from the user keyboard to put read process name. This is also one command you can put inside your shell script, which will wait for the user input. Whatever you enter would be assigned to the variable process name. That's also you can do. So you close the if condition. There is no requirement of else. You don't need else here. So the same thing that you want to do for service name also. Service name should also not be null. So you are cross checking the service name. So this is something you can do. What it would do is it first, so that you want to do in the beginning itself before you run the pgrep command, right? You want to verify the values, or you need to validate the values, whatever the user had passed, you need to validate them before you start with your script. So this if condition would be placed in the top.
Basically, one question. After this, we need to give the every time the path mandatory before process name / user bins as pgrep.
Not mandatory. Actually, it's not mandatory.
This one.
I just wanted
Okay.
to. I mean, you can simply type pgrep. You don't need to put user bin pgrep.
Okay.
Simple pgrep would also work because you are in a bash shell. But
Yeah.
sometimes
Okay.
I used to see some issues when you execute the script. That's why I put. Yeah. It's always better to put. It's always better to put the actual binary instead of symbol command. Okay, now I'm going to. Yeah, 1 second. I will just execute it and I will show you. Basically, we added this if condition. So I did not provide any process name. Then the if condition detected that. It found that process name is null. It is asking me for a process name. I am manually providing the process name. Basically, it is waiting for my user input, the read command. There was a read command inside my script that is waiting for my input. I am providing the input like rsyslogd. So whatever I input would be assigned to the variable process name now. Press again enter. It would also find that the service name is also invalid. So I need to provide a service name. Yeah. Then it will proceed. Or let's say your intention is you don't really want to wait for the user input. You just want to exit. As soon as you found that the values are null, there's an exit command you can use. Exit. Simply run the exit command. It will stop the execution. It will stop. So now let's say I'm going to execute this script without providing any arguments. It would say, please provide a valid process name, and it will exit. It will stop. Yeah, it will stop there itself. Yeah, I put 2 times because both thing I need to validate. Yeah, the here, yeah, correct. The first exit will stop. Whatever the first exit comes, it will stop the script.
So, Varsal, if we have to redirect this to a file, where should we put that? And if we want to keep a record,
you want the output to be redirected to a file.
Yeah, to a file.
Actually, when you execute the script, actually, that's what we have been doing here. What this greater than symbol does is the output of your script is sent to In this case, it's a null device. You want to send it to a file, you can send it to a file. Let's say /tmp /log file .txt, something. So if you put a single greater than symbol, it would rewrite the file. If you put double greater than, it would append to the file. Whatever output is there, it will erase the file. Yeah, it will erase the existing content, then copy the new content. If you put double greater than, the existing content will remain same. It will simply append. So if you want to put your timestamp, let's say you want to put the timestamp also to the file, there's a command date. Date command would print you the current time in Linux. Maybe, I mean, you simply want to know at what time the script got executed. At any point of time, you can add the timestamp into the file also. That's a good option. Then, or when you run this script, you can do like this also. This is also something you can do. Basically, the output of this entire script would be sent to this file. Now, if you look at this file, you can see the content. In this case, there wouldn't be anything. I'm providing the process name. Now look at this file. You can see the output of each commands. And Srilaga, did I answer your question? It's the exit command you use in Bash if you want to break